Happy International Women's Day. My name is Isidora Grgur, and today I will be hosting a conversation with three incredible women on behalf of Grow Europe. And we'll discuss the increasingly important topic of European entrepreneurship, digital sovereignty, and of course, the role women are playing in shaping Europe's economic and technological future. I will allow my guests to introduce themselves in more detail, but today I'm joined by Anna Zeiter, CEO of W, a social media platform built on the basis of transparency, privacy, and free speech, launching later this year. We have Maria João, who is the CFO of Monet, a Luxembourg-based social media platform made for humans, and Mathilde Baudouin, who is the Secretary General of the Union of European Federalists. I invited them to meet me and each other actually today to share their expertise while also discussing Europe's next chapter. We'll talk about what European strength means in today's global tech landscape, where capital is and should be flowing in European tech, AI, sovereignty, and long-term competitiveness, and of course, what structural support for female entrepreneurs and leaders looks like in Europe today. I hope this helps open up a broader conversation on whichever platform you're listening. And let's get into it.
3, 2, 1.
Hi, everyone. Happy International Women's Day. And thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and each other today. It's such a privilege to have you all in one place. Thought we'd start with a round of introductions. Would love to hear from you on who you are, what you're building at the moment, and what project is at the top of your to-do list this month. Maria, should we maybe start with you?
For sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be next to so many incredible women in just one place. My name is Maria, and currently I'm acting as a fractional CFO at Monet Social, which is a social media designed to see your friends again. And it's made in Europe, and that I'm very proud of being part of this project. Career-wise, I have been working in finance for at least 13 years. I started as an auditor, and then eventually moved to Luxembourg to discover this amazing project. So really happy to be here.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. Mathilde, how about you?
Yeah, I want to say as the same as Maria. I really thank you, Isidora, for the invitation, and I want to thank Maria and Anna for being alongside myself today, because I'm very impressed by your path and by what you're doing. So I'm very grateful to be with you all today. So I'm Mathilde Baudouin, I'm the Secretary General of the Union of European Federalists. We are a pan-European NGO representing the civil society for 80 years now. We have been built right after the Second World War. So we have a network across Europe, not only in member states, but also in future member states and also former member states like the UK. So we are very active in our network, and here in Brussels in the Secretariat we also work with European institutions. So on the top of my list I deal with all the very hot topic of the moment, in particular European defense at the moment. And what led me here is really feeling in my bones the fact that I wanted to act for strong European Union, a sovereign union that will be able to act and protect its citizens for a long time now. And when I was fighting with my friends so that they would go to vote for European elections, I realized, okay, I need to act and try to have some kind of impact, bridging the gap between the citizens and the politicians, the policymakers at the European level, because I realized that the European Union is still a blurry concept. So that's where I'm trying to have an impact.
Amazing. Anna?
Thank you for having me, and wow, great what you're doing. I'm happy to be part of this meeting today. So my name is Anna Zeiter, and I'm the CEO of W, this new social media platform that we are building for made in Europe for the world. A little bit of context background about myself. I'm originally by training a media lawyer. from Germany. I have a PhD in free speech and hate speech. For the last 11 and a half years, I was working for eBay. I was responsible at eBay for all of eBay's data as a chief privacy officer. So I have a background in media, free speech, and also privacy and AI responsibility. And yeah, since February, I'm leading W, and the idea is to create a social media platform based on real humans, open dialogue, and democratic values, made in Europe for the world. And this is my ambition. And you see here, the continent. This is we are made in Europe. The continent is glowing, and for a reason, because I feel we all need to step up, and we need to show what great things can come out of Europe.
Amazing. This is couldn't have had a better introduction to our discussion. Let's start with some questions on your areas of expertise. And I would love to start with you. You've spoken a lot about the urgent need for platforms that are developed, managed, hosted in Europe. What do you think is at stake if we don't build our own digital infrastructure?
Yeah, good question. When you look at the social media landscape around the world right now, and when you look at Europe, what are the social media apps or the big players that you're using on a daily basis? I mean, me included. I'm using LinkedIn from the US. I'm using Facebook. I'm using Instagram. There's Snap. The younger generation or some of my friends, they're using TikTok from China, but there's no major player here. And I would like to change that. And the dream is that in a couple of months, or at the latest next year, people in Europe wake up in the morning, they open W as the first thing to check news, and not only news from the US and from China, but mainly news from Europe. So I would like to create a social media platform where Europe comes first. I mean, everyone is invited around the world to join, and we see that on the wait list. Like, not only Europeans signed up, it's incredible. People from the US, from Canada, from Latin America, even from China, Australia, they all signed up. But we just want to offer an alternative where Europe comes first, and we actually bundle different European news, high quality journalism that you can check. Hey, what's going on in Germany, for example, what's going on in France, in Italy, what's going on in Ireland, and the UK as well. So you see here on the map, UK is there as well, glowing, Greenland as well, on purpose, because we feel we are all belonging to the same family.
Amazing. And Mathilde, I'm curious from your perspective, obviously talking about policy, how does this side of digital sovereignty fit into the broader vision of European unity as you see it?
Yeah, I really appreciate what Anna just said, because we believe in this idea of European family at the UEF, and that is broader than the current member states. So this idea of European unity is really in the core of our activity, advocacy, actions, and to expand, but also to deepen what we have right now in the European Union is very important for us. So it can go from past successes that are still very big successes. I'm speaking about, for example, the Euro or the Schengen zone, that have been very successful projects within the European Union, and that we should not forget about. All those very important successes at the EU and at the EU level, and that's something that we really want to push forward and to keep going towards. And in the digital sphere, I would say that the digital area is very sensitive and highly strategic. But I would also like to underline the successes that we have had in this sphere. So I'm thinking of the GDPR, that was a huge success. I'm thinking of the DMA and DSA, Digital Market Act, Digital Services Act, that are also very important elements of the European power, let's say, around the digital area. But still, even last year, we highlight some persistent dependence of European digital infrastructures on non-European providers. And that's where we call for a strengthened action. And on this, we think the European Union should lead the way by implementing internally those European providers and start relying more on those very successful and brilliant European providers that are popping across Europe to foster this independence and sovereignty of the European Union and to go towards European unity and to avoid to be divided and depending too much on maybe some unreliable partner anymore, or just to foster the European independence, basically. So that's where we see the link, because the digital sphere, as I was able to mention, is very important, highly strategic again. So that's something that we should focus on.
It's also the space we all inhabit every day. Maybe some would argue even more so than like our actual physical spaces, right? I'm also curious to hear, what does this actually look like in practice? And maybe Maria, we can hear from you when we think about a truly European tech platform in terms of governance, values, business model. How do you see it from your experience with Monet so far?
Yes, and I can even grab a lot of the points that Anne and Mathilde
of course
brought. I can start with also using the example of Monet. I mean, what does a neural platform look like? And it starts for being an entity that it's incorporated in Europe, that operates in Europe, but for Europe as well, and that it's hosted in Europe. And to bring also what Mathilde said about the regulations, I know that most of the times, and even on the general conversation in media, it's all, regulation is so boring, and there goes EU making another act, boo. But actually, those are measures that are designed to protect citizens and to not simply jump into the hype completely unprotected. An European platform, I feel, it's a different architecture of trust. So to me, this is a core that sometimes is weaponized against, but you are delaying innovation. But I don't think we should put innovation or capital returns just like the first thing, without any considerations for the governance, for the values, for what it actually means, build certain things, and for what purpose. So to me, an European platform in reality looks like looks like Monet, and looks like a lot of startups and businesses that have been developed in Europe, that have been a reference of excellence. Actually, our regulations are taken as example for other nations. China uses our regulations as well as a good standard to study them, to make their regulations better. Latin America as well. So it's good that we are honored of this boring part of paperwork that it's so much needed to live on this planet as humans, because indeed the platforms should be built for humans. We are humans. We are not data points to be extracted. So what I see is that Europe platforms are, although we became, of course, not just us, but the entire planet became consumers of the big tech. But it doesn't mean that to find an alternative, we have to copy them. So I'm very proud to see Europe and European platforms and startups and not falling into the surveillance capitalism, not looking, no, we don't want to do it this way. We have enough. And it's about time that we do something different. We do something better for us, for our democracy, and for our people, for us in the end.
Yeah, and also thinking about, what is the initial purpose of all of these platforms, right? I love what you said about being humans first, consumers second, perhaps. But also what you mentioned on, I suppose, wider public opinion and a lot of criticism that does come towards European tech is the regulation. And Anna, especially, based on your experience at eBay and working with data and privacy, it's a very fine line, right? Like, how do we reconcile growth and ambitious growth, aggressive growth, though I don't like that word, with a very regulated landscape? Because, as Maria mentioned, and I fully agree that the regulation is one of the backbones. But how do we reconcile that?
Yeah, a good question. Let me take one step back and comment on what Maria said. Humans first. This is important to us because the fact that most of the other big players don't have, or all of them not has human verification on their platforms, which means that some of them have a lot of AI bots, and then there are bot farms being influenced, manipulated from different political forces. We cannot always, look into, or we don't know where all this influence is coming from. And this is why we thought it's important that we verify users as humans first. This is first thing. But we want to do it now, coming back to your question, in a privacy compliant way. Because when we first announced that in Davos, we want to do human verification to avoid bots on the platform, there was a big outcry. W wants to create a copy of all IDs, and then they do public surveillance on big scale. No. So we are currently developing a technology which is decentralized, so that I don't have access to the ID information because I don't want it, I don't need it, I don't want to use or extract whatever the data. And this is what I learned at eBay. The less data you have, the less prone you are to have a data breach. So I don't want to have the data, I don't want to have access to ID information. And this is why it takes a couple of more weeks until we launch the beta version publicly, because we want to do things right. At the same time, we are also in good contacts with the European regulators because we want to do things right. Of course, I mean, Europe is highly regulated. And if you compare Europe to the US, for example, we have more laws and stricter laws. But I don't see that necessarily as a disadvantage. You need to think things through from the beginning, and then you need to work closely with the regulators, and they're all very nice. So they want to help, they want to collaborate, they're willing to have a conversation, and that's a good thing. And I also feel that privacy is on top of users' minds. So over the last couple of weeks, what I've seen that hundreds of users, people are on the wait list, they send long emails with concerns and opinions and very good feedback about the question, for example, shall we allow anonymous accounts, only clear name accounts? So people have a lot of opinions, and this is super valuable feedback, which means people actually care about it. And this is why it's important, because what we want to build, of course, hopefully another global, not only European, but global player, but based on trust. And if you want to be based on trust, you need to stick to the law. Of course, there's some laws have a bit of gray zones. You don't know exactly how to interpret them. But then you reach out to your regulator and say, look, we have a question around this, and you can work together with them. So I don't see it, Maria, as you said, necessarily as a disadvantage for innovation. And I think this is also a bit my ambition, to show the world we can be, hopefully at one point, profitable, sexy, kind of cool, bold, but compliant at the same time.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And again, it's such a privilege to have both of you here in the same space talking about it while you're at the frontier of this. What I'm really curious about, and capital is sort of the backbone of all of this, right? And Maria, also from your experience in finance, I'm curious to know obviously there's like the regulatory side and the policy side, and then there's the side of where capital is flowing, where is it being invested, what is being pushed, because this growth is also not just a matter of strong will, it's a matter of funds to back it up. So where do you see capital flowing in Europe at the moment, and also where do you think it should be flowing?
Exactly. I mean, we cannot live out of just good ideas.
Exactly. So that would be a dream.
That's an utopia. But anyways, so right now the capital, the the smart money of Europe, so is it's playing, I would say, a bit safe. It's going through, not going through. It's going to deep tech. It's going to the infrastructure, a lot of infrastructure independence, but physical infrastructure independence, like the energy infrastructures, the defense tech. So anything that keeps the lights on in Europe, like the map that W has there, and anything that keeps our borders safe. So it's very hard shell wise. It's something that you can touch. But I would argue that we need to push this capital a bit beyond, not a bit, quite beyond, and um, and needs to go towards something more invisible, but actually the very foundations of our society, of our humanity, which is this social fabric. So capital, in my opinion, should be flowing into our social infrastructure, the digital spaces that we now inhabit, because we cannot deny that we don't live in those spaces. Even if you have a reduced presence, you still use your phone. I mean, who doesn't have a phone in this planet? So the digital town squares, to make an analogy, are under a lease agreement, and the landlord is Silicon Valley mostly. And Europe needs to own that real estate, and to own and to make those spaces where our citizens inhabit, our citizens meet, our citizens communicate, to really own our own security. Because if you are already quite invested in investing in actual defense, which is very important, and energy transition, of course, you have to consider as well the safety of your digital spaces. So in the end, social infrastructure investment is actually defense investment. Because when in these spaces you have a foreign algorithm that decides the information that you see, but also the information that you don't see, decides what keeps you inspired, what can keep you apathetic, what basically manipulating your emotions,
What you should
touching
at the end of the day.
It is, I mean, touching all ages spectrum, because it starts, especially now, you have the younger generations like the alpha and beta that were born with iPads on their hands. And you have the older generation that quite adapted to new technology. You have an entire society touching technology and living a digital space. It's not just, oh, it's just millennials on Instagram. It's not. So it becomes a huge liability in our armor, if we, by continuing to use this defense analogy, that you are trusting an entire democratic society to the will of a few individuals. And this is a huge compromise on our social stability. So it is concerning, but on the flip side, if not, we are already doing that. When we now look inwards and invest in the social infrastructure, we are investing in a more united society, and a society that is connected, that it's not polarized, that it's not divided. It's much harder to destabilize and to be completely under attack, or so it's the core reason why we are building Monet. All in all, capital is flowing to defense, but it should and is actually flowing into the social defense. And I'm very happy to see that movement happening.
I love the term social defense.
It is.
Yeah. Anna, were you going to add something earlier?
Yeah, very quickly. I love what you said. And to add on that, it's important that where the data is being hosted.
Yes.
Because I think you quickly touched on that. And that was actually one of my first questions when I met the co-founders of W in Sweden for the first time. Where is the data being hosted? Because I didn't want, at the end, there's like a big hyperscaler in the US. No. So we decided that the data is hosted on European servers owned by a European company. We are working with UpCloud in Finland. They have servers across Europe, and the data is not being hosted in China or in the US, because this is, as you said, social defense. And data is the new oil. Not only data, high quality data is the new oil. Of course, we try to have as little data as possible, especially not the ID information. But we will have, of course, data storage about the social media platform as such. And I want to make sure that the data is stored in Europe without a backdoor to the US. Because what you're currently seeing is all these debates. Oh, when you enter the US, you need to give your social media information. And we see there's a business opportunity there that maybe even people from the US or from other countries around the world are like, no, I would like to have my data stored in Europe and not in the US any longer. And this is why we see an increasing amount of people on our wait list coming from the US, interestingly. So, and I think we cannot be naive about these things. Like, where is the data? How is it being protected? Who has access to the data in which country? Data, geopolitics, power, democracy, that all goes together. And we cannot be naive, as I said. And I think it matters where the data is physically stored. Because that's also a question of defense at the
end. Mathilde, just wanted to hear your thoughts on this as well. Obviously, we'll also definitely touch on sort of structural institutional support, especially for women in tech, thinking about how amazing it is we're all having this conversation. But also curious if there's anything that you wanted to add from a policy standpoint, from an institutional standpoint.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on what was said also, because for me it's very important, this idea that the digital sphere, technology, geopolitics, democracy, everything is intertwined. And in particular, when you talk about defense and security, I think of an example that I'm sure you have all heard about, but I think it's still worth it to mention it here. When I was talking about the euro, how successful is the euro, and how successful is this policy across Europe, I'm also seeing where it could go further, because you have probably heard not that long ago that Trump had set sanctions on the International Criminal Court judges, some of the judges, which meant that they could not use their payment system, credit cards, or access their Google account, which then is directly linked to what you just said, Maria and Anna, in terms of securing your data and access to services that you usually have access to. So those kind of elements are really pushing us to be very more vocal about European sovereignty when it comes to digitalization, and in particular, in that sense, about payment systems and a digital euro, which are non-negotiable now for European stability as well, and for security and defense. So on this, and security in particular, on this, I wanted to jump in, because of course this discussion is very meaningful, I think, and I wanted to mention this. And then when it comes to what you just said about the structural institutional support, I would say, again, I like to start by saying that we have seen progresses. We are not 10, 20 years ago. We see support in women initiative, etc. but still, even if it's done with a little bit of funding or quotas, it's still a bit lacking behind. And I would say that even more can be done in the field of tech. I'm not sure tech, even finance or policy. I'm not sure we are half in terms of representation in leading positions at least. And this is something that is to be taken care of, because as I was saying, I care about the European Union and Europe being a safe place for the citizens, a better place for the citizens, but then we cannot take care of only half of those citizens, so, and represent only half of those citizens. So that's something that is absolutely crucial. I'm thinking now of two things. Now you have probably understood that I'm pretty much keen on this institutional regulation aspect of it. So I would like to mention accountability. I think accountability is very important when you have policies, measures, but that you don't really have clear metrics of success and really measure how impactful it can be in representing women and putting women at the forefront of those initiatives and policies. So on this, I think it's a very important aspect of what could be missing in a way. And then I would like also to mention culture. There is a culture gap to bridge, I think, on my side, at least in politics and policy making. I really see that it's still a male-dominated world, and that even if we have top leaders that are women, especially in Europe, on different sides, it can be the European Commission, it can be the European Central Bank, the European Parliament. It's very good to have those women at those top positions, but still, I would say, I think across Europe, politicians are. We are very far from this half representation, as I was telling you before. So I think there is also this cultural change that is very important to tackle, because when we see little girls, I want them to feel like they can do anything, and they can go in tech and finance and policy, and they can be ambitious and bold, as we teach the boys to be so. And I think I am quite sure that if you watch the TV as a little girl and that you see a lot of girls, a lot of women, then you will, of course, have in your mind that you can do it yourself as well. In books, everything, everywhere. And this is culture. So I think that's something that is very important, and that matters a lot on one side. And this culture change, as I was telling you, can be tackled with quotas or those mandatory quotas, or more funding for female initiatives, or those kind of element, because of course funding is very important in a way to support women initiative or leaders sorry. And also maybe on the other side, we could also think of fostering some kind of flexible work cultures, because I think in a way some top leading positions are non-accessible for women if they want to have a family life, because they are the one bearing the mostly the weight of having a family. So on this aspect, it could be something implemented as well as a broader policy, let's say, to have a flexible work culture in different places, in taking finance, in policy, anywhere. So it's a field that can be tackled in different aspects. But yeah, most importantly, of course, for me, legislation is always a way of leading the way, but it's not the only thing. But it can affect, of course, the cultural change that still needs to be tackled, I would say.
And I mean, the forefront of it is, female-led businesses, right, that are sharing these great ideas and introducing them to our wider society. I thought it was really interesting, when you talked about investment and this idea of 50-50. Actually, the latest stat that I was able to find was 2024, but 12% of venture capital euros invested within the EU actually went to female founded businesses, only 12%. And that definitely leads to maybe even homogenization of ideas that are able to access the market, and then we are able to access as consumers. So thinking about the types of products, businesses, technology that is being developed, these perspectives are super important. As you said, you need to take care of everyone, and the market should be incorporating everyone and everyone's needs. But thank you so much for sharing. I think this was a also great segue, I think, into thinking about advice for women to build careers in business, technology, policy. I guess based on all of yours' wealth of experience, is there anything that you'd like to close off with?
I would like to add something. I
Yeah,
think, Mathilde, I think you're right with saying legislation plays a big role in that. But I think there's more we can do, and I think we all agree on that. I also teach at university. I teach privacy law since many years, and this is a good way to show young people, but especially young women, you can have a career in tech and tech law and whatever you want. You just need to do it. And I think it's always good to have someone, someone who already did it. You can only be what you see. And then I was thinking about other female CEOs. I was like, oh, okay, if they can do it, I think I can do that as well. And I think this is sometimes what female are doing, like, maybe I'm not good enough. I need 5 more certifications. I need to study that first. I think this is what a lot of women think. No, I'm only good when I have all the certifications and the diplomas. And at one point, I don't need more diplomas. I just need to do it. And I think this is what I'm mentoring other women as well. And I tell them, you have a lot of diplomas. So now it's the time to do it. And you're smart enough, and look at all these other, just do it. And I'm happy to give, empowering speeches about that. And this is what I try to do always with my students, when I speak at conferences, when I speak to my mentees, like, just do it. No more diplomas needed. You can learn on the fly. This is what the guys are doing as well.
Yeah. There's also a stat I read recently on, don't know the exact percentage, but on like a significantly higher portion of men apply for job positions where they don't meet the minimum requirements, versus for women, it's something extremely low, like single-digit percentage, which is so true. So, these types of conversations hopefully light a spark.
But I really agree with what Anna said on mentorship, and on this idea that if you see someone doing it, and you see someone that has done it with having the same type of doubts that you have, the same type of struggles that you have, actually it can help making you even bolder and even more ambitious. And that's not a bad word for women to be ambitious. That's something also to keep in mind, because we are not taught this way. I at least not me. So that's something that it's really important. I think what you said, Anna, and even myself, when I look up to some policymakers, politicians, women in power, and that I see sometimes their testimonies on some aspect of their careers that is very difficult to manage, because they have had those doubts, they went through those type of thoughts and ideas, because they were women in a male dominated world. It's very important that I can also see myself in them, and that probably other people see themselves in us, in a way to see to tell yourself, it's not because I have this doubt that I'm not capable of doing it. I am smart enough, as you were saying, Anna. I am smart enough. I have enough diplomas. I can do it. Yeah, exactly. Just jump in the pool, jump in the water. I don't know how to say it in English, but just do it. Exactly.
I completely agree. I mean, if I may add, to find that courage to jump, it from personal experience, I think it takes also some inner work to say to ourselves and to say to other women, don't believe, never believe they are lies. When they tell you, oh, you should, what you should like, what you should want, what you should, how you should behave, where you should go, and anything that it's not in that box of womanhood, it's wrong. You are just a weird human, and you're wrong. So don't feel guilty for being ambitious. Don't feel guilty to follow your inner voice, because that's your human voice. We are all humans after all. So the construction that has been built around how women should behave, work, it's a lie. So just go for it. Just go for it. You have enough certifications. I mean, in my career, when I started, I studied accounting. I have a bachelor in accounting, but my favorite subject was audit. So I said, no, I want to be an auditor. And from the very beginning, job interviews from colleagues, even teachers. No, Maria, you're crazy. Being an auditor, you studied accounting, so you're going to be an accountant. It's like, but I don't want to be an accountant. And then I was an auditor. I became an auditor. It was one of my favorite things I did. I learned so much. And then, okay, I want to work in a big four. I want to be an auditor for a big four. Oh, you're crazy. You don't have a master. Where is your where is your economics, whatever? No, I did it. I went. So it's always, they always tell you that you're not enough, but you can always tell them, you know what, I'm going to try it and I'm going to prove you wrong. And
I like
and
that
that's
approach.
how I want the any women looking at whatever, if you're young starting, or if you're older and still questioning life choices, if you should pursue your dreams, just do it seriously. It's liberating, and it's what we should do.
Yeah, I also think there's a huge element of, the classic quote of being the change you want to see in the world, right? But
Yes.
as women, and especially as women who have had access to education, or who think about the world in a certain way, we identify all of these problems, but very rarely feeling the agency to actually go and solve that problem. What we all spoke about today, Mathilde, when it comes to the policy side of things, or both Anna and Maria on, thinking this is something that is happening in terms of social defense in Europe. What can we do about it? So that's also a message. If I can add a little piece of my own, that is really important, of actually leaping to and putting your passion behind a problem you're looking to solve.
Yeah. Maybe three things to add from my side, if I may.
Of course.
I think Mathilde touched a bit on that. There's still this generation of women out there who think, I had to do it the hard way. You also need to do it the hard way.
True.
Don't be that woman. Like, yes. Okay, we all appreciate that 20, 30 years ago, the world was different and you had a hard time. We are sorry for that. But that doesn't mean that you cannot support other women. So don't be that, be someone who's really kind and nice and pull other women up. Second, when I also be open about what you can do, what you cannot do. So when I joined W, I said, look, these are the pieces I can bring to the table. I can bring A, B, C, D. I can do this and this. Here, I need some help. I'm happy to learn that. For example, as you can see from my CV, I've never been a CFO in my life. I'm happy to learn that skill. You can bring out of 100 skills, maybe 70 or 80 to the table. You have a bit of gaps, but that's okay. Everyone has gaps. Be aware, be transparent about that, and then work on it. And then third, nothing comes for free. It still means hard work. So, and this is also what I learned. Of course, everything comes for a price. I mean, of course, being a CEO of a new social media platform means a lot of hard work. Nothing falls from the sky, and this is why we need a network. We need to support each other, like with I don't know, business advice, emotional support. And this is why I think it's great to have this call, to make more friends and spread the good vibes, and then we can do it together.
I think that's exactly what we did. Thank you all so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully this does open up a wider discussion on all the platforms where our listeners will be on. And yeah, hopefully we'll all stay in touch, and you three will stay in touch, most importantly.
We will.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, ladies. Have a good day.
Thank you for organizing. Bye-bye.